Holding on to the hand of self-destruction. And I'm back to a place that I left a long time ago. Just give me a sec while I smoke this cigarette. My aching body feels better still. What do you do when you pick up my guitar and
A couple of shows ago, a gentleman called in asking about a dead horse in Dogman. This horse's face was chewed on, the genitalia eaten out. Well, you guys speculated whether it was Dogman or some type of cattle mutilation. The reason why I contacted you today is because I've had the very same thing happen to one of my favorite horses, and I can tell you for sure that it was Dogman. Understand, I have 500 acres of land, horses, pigs, chickens, a barn, a full stable, the works. My favorite horse's name was Roosevelt. One evening, we're on the back side of my property. He's tied to a tree. I'm working on a fence, and Roosevelt just goes crazy, bucking and pulling, pops the rope, runs 30 yards over to me and starts looking at me like we need to go. Now, I'm figuring it's a pack of coyotes in the area because I've had serious problems with coyotes from time to time. But now I notice he's got his back to me, bumping into me like he didn't want to let something get behind him. Now, imagine a scene. That area of my property, there's this trail that you ride to get back up in there. Once you get into that area, it's kind of a horseshoe. There's thick brush on both your left and your right, and my property line actually curves, making a U shape. As I'm standing there trying to finish making repairs to this fence, Roosevelt will not leave me alone. So I say, okay, boy, you ready to go? We're gonna go ahead and go. Listen to me, the minute I mount him, he takes off, falling out of there. I'm trying my best to slow him down, but he's not having it. He runs full speed up that trail, head darting back and forth, looking left and right like he's spooked. So spooked that now I'm starting to get afraid, looking and trying to see if there's something there in the thick brush, but I don't see anything. Now, when we get back to the front side of the property, I dismount him, get him some water, and go to leave. But he follows me towards the house. And right then and there in that moment is when I knew something strange was going on, because Roosevelt never behaved this way. He was a stubborn bastard. When we were done doing whatever we needed to do, normally he would look at me like, okay, you go your way, and I'm gonna go my way, leave me the hell alone for the rest of the day. But he damn near followed me to the back door. So I walk him into the fence and let him go into one of the pastures. Hours pass, I'm inside, my wife is cooking supper. It's about to get dark outside, so I head out to stable him. And he's not there. So now I'm on my 4x4. The sun is damn near gone down. And remember, I have 500 acres of land. And I'm out here looking for him. Listen to me. With any other horse in my stable, I wouldn't even put this type of energy and effort into finding them. I would have let them come back on their own. But Roosevelt was a gift from my wife. And I had a special bond with this horse. Something in the back of my mind told me I needed to go back up that trail where we were earlier that day. And the minute I got on that trail, I get this eerie feeling like I'm being watched. So now, I have my rifle in hand, driving along. I go 400 yards, 450 yards, 500 yards, and I see blood all over the place. Confused, when I come around one of the turns in that trail, Roosevelt is laid out, face chewed off, and there's this giant black wolf standing on two legs, pulling him by one of his hind legs. His genitalia is gone. For a moment there, I found myself in shock. Then scared. But right after that, I got pissed. Really pissed. So I start shooting. I hit this thing twice, and it did nothing. It just looks at me, lets him go, and starts to head in my direction. So I empty the magazine. I'm nervous, I'm scared. I'm aiming for its lower thigh. But I swear to you, I must have hit it in its genitalia because it dropped down on all fours and took off running. Now, disappointed, hurt, confused, afraid. Those were all the emotions I felt as I headed back home. I would have never imagined that there was something like this on my property. And there was absolutely no way that I could deal with it on my own. So when I get back home, I call my best friend Elmo, tell him what happened, and he agrees to go with me early the next morning to retrieve Roosevelt's body. That following morning when we get back out there, Roosevelt is gone. Flies all over the place, the blood done dried up, ants swarming on the pieces of his flesh left on the ground. Calling the game warden was Elmo's idea, so we call him. They come out, look around. This man tries to brainwash me and tells me that it was a cougar that I saw. And that's when I lost it. Cursed his out, told him to get the f off my property. I know exactly what I saw. It wasn't a cougar, and you can't make me believe it was a cougar. Like I said to you earlier, you could have never told me that I would be afraid on my own piece of land. But ever since these incidents, I don't even go anywhere near the backside of my property. And I used to care about that section of land. People would hunt it illegally. I would have to go back there and run them off. But now, mentally, I have completely written it off. That section of property does not belong to me. It belongs to whatever the hell is back there. And I prefer for it to stay back there than come anywhere near the front side where my chickens, horses, cows, and pigs are. So guess what, Dogman? You can have all that back there. It's yours. Listen, I know people say Dogman is bad. And I guess in some cases it can be. But in my case, he was a savior. This happened when I was 19 years old on the outskirts of Jackson, Mississippi. I was living there and doing the wrong things. Ended up stealing money from a very, very dangerous man. It's 9:30 p.m. I'm headed home, walking through this alley, and out of the blue, they attacking me, hitting me, slamming me against the fence, punching, kicking, blood pouring out of my mouth. My lips burned as they swelled up. The only thing left to do was to curl up on the ground, trying to protect my head. That's when I hear this growl, and the beating stops. Looking up, I can barely see what looks like a giant black wolf on the other side of that fence. They take off running, and I black out. Hours later, I wake up, drag myself home, not sure exactly what the hell happened. But get this, 2 days later, I get a visit from the same dudes who beat my ass, asking me to call off my dog, saying that dog had been following them around. Look, to this day, I'm not sure why Dogman did this, but I'm glad it did. But a month later, I had to leave Jackson because word on the street was murder. They were going to kill me over $3,000. So I fled. I first told some of my story over on another channel. Later learned that the guy was a fraud. Also that he edited out a huge portion of my encounter. You see, back in the early 90s, me and my daughter had our Dogman encounter. We were out fishing, and truthfully it wasn't exactly terrifying at all. That day, we had been fishing for crappie in one of the lakes. Imagine this, the two of us on my flatboat, anchored right at the edge of these high weeds and reeds. The water's no more than 7 feet deep, and we're using these old school crappie fishing poles. My daughter, who's actually better at catching fish than me, is burning them up, catching fish after fish after fish. I remember bending over to get some more bait out of the live well, and then hearing this explosion in the water. It sounded like something or someone quickly scurrying through that water away from us. We used our long fishing rod, spreading and laying down those reeds. And that's when we get a glimpse of this wolf. And let me tell you, this thing had to be 11, 12 feet tall. And remember, we were in 7 feet of water. Worst case scenario, the depth changed from 7 to 5 feet from where we were to where we saw it. But nonetheless, this thing still had to be tall because its waist was above the water. Its head is turned to the left, looking off in another direction, and it's almost as if it was listening for some kind of sound. Now, I'm not sure if you ever found yourself in a situation like this, but what my daughter and I did was we froze for a brief second, looked at each other. She whispers to me, "Dad, am I seeing what I think I'm seeing?" And I say, "Yes, honey." And I tell her, "Yes." So I tiptoe to the front of the boat, gently pulling the anchor from the water, then crank her up and get the hell out of there. Now listen to me, that was our Dogman encounter. But see, I talked about the things that happened after my Dogman encounter, and no one ever heard it. So now I want to share it with you. 2 weeks pass from that incident, and we start to have this string of bad luck. Incomprehensible bad luck. I go to pick up my daughter from school. It's about 30 miles away from home. I get to school, successfully pick her up. We get about 8 blocks away from the campus, and I get a flat tire. Listen, no problem. Hop up out of the car, change the tire. Listen, no problem at all. I hop out of the car, get the spare, put it on. Now we're back on the road. Then we get 5 miles away from our house and get another flat tire. Listen, we have to get a ride, have the car towed home, and not only buy a new tire, but buy a new spare tire. Never seen anything like that in my life. Then, a few days after that, weird and strange stuff starts happening around my house. I'm in the kitchen. My daughter is in the back of the house in her bedroom on the cell phone with a little punk boyfriend that I didn't like at that time. I'm standing over the stove making chicken fried rice when I hear this growl in my house. Now, initially I'm thinking, okay, she's got the TV on too loud, but then she comes flying into the kitchen saying, "Daddy, did you hear that? Did you hear that growl?" But then she comes flying into the kitchen. Dad, did you hear that growl? What was that?" Even her punk boyfriend on the phone heard this growl. And it was loud, man. Scared me so much that I went into the attic with a shotgun trying to see if we had some kind of wild animal in the attic of our condo. Now pause. Let me explain this to you. To be clear, my daughter and I don't live anywhere near woods. We live in condos, essentially row houses attached to each other in the middle of the city. A couple of days later, it's time for her to go to school. We're sitting at the kitchen table eating breakfast when we hear the growl again, this time coming from my bedroom. Look, it scared my daughter so much, she hops up, grabs her bag, goes outside, and sits in the car waiting for me to take her to school. Listen. If you think that's bad, we're not done yet. So that same morning, on our way to school, she says, "Daddy, I need to stop by Walgreens and get some loose leaf paper for my class." So she and I go into Walgreens to get loose leaf paper, and they come in and rob the place. 2 dudes come in with masks on screaming, "Get on the ground! Get on the ground!" Now my daughter and I are huddled in the back of Walgreens by the pharmacy department. I'm thinking to myself, man, what the have I done wrong? Listen, I didn't make the full connection between our Dogman encounter and the bad luck that happened afterwards until I heard another interview on this channel. And then all of the pieces to the puzzle came together. Because for days after those events, my daughter and I were on edge. And then the bad luck and all the strange occurrences stopped as they started, just as suddenly as they started. Now, to this day, I'm not sure what to make of it. But what I can tell you is this. The only thing about our routine that changed, we go fishing all the time, we do breakfast all the time, I cook that same chicken fried rice every Thursday. The only new thing that was introduced to our life was that damn Dogman. And for the record, we haven't been back to that lake fishing again.
Feeling like myself again, open up like a flower in the moonlight. I've been taking space to mend, to hold me up, cause I've fallen so many times. Coming up slowly, towards the light like a vine upon your window. Am I your only?
I had my first abortion at age 16, the second at age 21. Never really gave much thought to it, just knew that it wasn't the right time in my life for me to be having a child. Fast forward 10 years, I'm 31 years old, married with a good paying job, and find out now that I can't have kids. It was heartbreaking for me and my husband. So we went through with the long process of adoption, and after 2 years, we adopted our son, Colin. Understand, adopting an 8-year-old kid is tough, especially when that kid has been in the system his entire life. Colin suffered with trust issues and would frequently have nightmares. And other times there were things he just refused to talk about. But by the time he was 12 years old, my husband and I had made a breakthrough. Colin was a happy young man, active in sports, and outgoing. Understand, my son can have a little bit of reckless behavior, and he also has a bit of a violent streak. But the older he got, the more we were able to get it under control. And my husband and I started to call him Handsome because we wanted to build his confidence up. Never intending for it to stick as an official nickname, but kids started calling him Handsome. At age 16, you could clearly tell he was not our son. Genetically, he towered over my husband and I. 6'6", 185 pounds, lean muscle. They tried to recruit him for every sport, but Colin wanted to swim. And to our surprise, he was a natural. His long body allowed him to glide and slice through the water, and he started competing. And when I tell you, seeing Colin in the pool was an electrifying experience. It was amazing. Crowds going wild. College scholarship offers coming in from everywhere. And yes, as parents, I can say we were very proud of him. But deep down inside, we knew his athletic ability had nothing to do with us. And my husband, even though he was proud, struggled with the whole situation. He was literally raising someone else's son, watching that child achieve the epitome of athletic perfection, but deep down inside, knowing that it had absolutely nothing to do with him. The reality of our situation begins to weigh on my husband, so I decided we needed to get away from the world. A little vacation. Just the three of us as a family out in the woods, some time to unwind and relax. So I rented a 2-bedroom house for the weekend. Northwest Alabama, right on a lake. We all hopped in a car and headed out and talk about a good family vacation. We needed it. It was the first time we relaxed as a family in a long time. No running back and forth, no work, no questions about Colin and sports, just us hanging out by the fire pit, talking and laughing. That Sunday morning, we had breakfast at 7:30, and Colin says he wants to go for a swim in the lake. Imagine this. There's this wooded area across from our boat launch. He wanted to swim over to the wooded area, check it out, and then come right back. Judging the distance from out of the kitchen window, it looked about a good 200 to 300 meters, nothing for Colin to swim over, so we decided to let him go. My husband and I sit on the back porch having coffee, watching as he swims over, climbs up on land, looks around a bit, then walks into the trees, uses the bathroom, hops in the water, and begins to swim back over. No problems whatsoever. After that, we hang out a bit more, head to the grocery store to get some steaks for the grill, asparagus, a few potatoes so we could dice them up and put them in the oven. Then do a little shopping for clothes, and we get back to the house at about 5:30. Now, Colin wants to go for a swim again. My husband is saying, "Look, son, it's going to get dark soon, and boats may be out there, and they may not be able to see you." The two of them are arguing back and forth, and my husband finally gives in, tells the boy, "Go ahead, just hurry up, swim over, and come straight back." Just before Colin dives off the dock and into the water, he turns around and says, "Don't worry, Dad. I'll make it fast. I promise you, I'm coming right back." So now, my husband and I are keeping an eye on him, but doing other things. He's outside at the grill. I'm inside, slicing potatoes, preparing the asparagus. And I notice that he's made it to the other bank. He's kind of poking around, walking on the edge of the wood line, looking. I take my eyes off him for a second to finish dicing the potatoes. I say a good 8 to 10 minutes pass. Something is bothering me. It's telling me go outside and check on Colin. So I head out the back door and ask my husband, "Is Colin on his way back yet? Have you seen him?" Now, both of us are turning our attention to the area where Colin should be. Walking down to the edge of the dock, looking, but I don't see him anywhere. "Colin! Colin! It's time to come back, buddy," my husband screams. Standing there, the sun is falling down behind the trees. This bad feeling starts to set in. You know, that motherly instinct? You just know something's not right. Listen to me. There were no boats on the water, and Colin swims like a fish. So there's absolutely no chance that this boy is drowned. Something's going on over there on that island. So I tell my husband to swim over there and go get him. He reassures me that Colin is fine. Let's just give him a minute. He may be up in the woods messing around. And so we call him again. "Colin! Come on, son, it's time to go. Come on, Colin!" That's when you see him come running out of the wood line, this long stride. He cuts to the right, onto this little bluff, steps on a log, and dives into the water. But something was off. And at that moment, I couldn't place it. But seconds later, it became very, very clear as this creature came running out of the woods. Hairy, 6 to 7 feet tall, pointy ears, running on 2 legs. It goes to the bluff, stands there, and begins to smell the air. Understand, Colin hadn't come up from under the water. My husband and I are standing there on the boat dock in shock at what we're seeing. 15 seconds later, Colin comes up from under the water, and he is smoking. Listen to me, I have never seen that boy swim that fast. But he's swimming on an angle that would eventually lead him away from us. That's when this creature starts to take these huge steps, backing up, gets a running start, and jumps into the water. Holy were the words that came out of my husband's mouth, because it launches into the air, hits the water, and goes under. Now we're screaming. My husband is running to the car to get the gun. I'm repositioning myself from off the dock, running along the side of the bank to get in front of Colin. And he's smoking, man, moving through that water like a hot knife through butter. I've never experienced anything like this before, but you know how they show you in the movies when bad things are happening, time slows down? Well, that's how it was, slow motion. I see my husband running back in my direction with a gun in hand, Colin swimming. And at this point in time, I've had to move so far down the bank that I'm literally right up against the gate of another homeowner. And out of my peripheral vision, I can see that homeowner slowly walking out of their back door. And then this creature's head pops up out of the water. It's stationary for a second, looking around. But now Colin is damn near 100 feet away from me, and I hear this gunshot. And I hear these gunshots. Kaboom! 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 Heart damn near jumped out of my chest. And then I realized it's not my husband shooting, because he's right next to me, going into the lake, gun in hand, to get Colin. This creature sinks back underwater, and it's gone. Colin is now on shore. The neighbor is running down to his dock, rifle in hand, screaming, "Son of a, pop your head up again. I'm going to blow it off." It's massive confusion in that moment. And the look on Colin's face is like he literally just escaped the Nazi prison camp. Now the neighbor is screaming at us, "Pack it and go. It's done got the boys sent. I'm going to stay out here and make sure it doesn't come ashore. But y'all need to go." And now I need you to understand, this guy's not some pot-belly, redneck-looking fellow. He looks like one of those retired Army general types, that slick-back silver hair, a little bit too fit for an old man. And the way he barked orders at us, he had to be military, because it felt like you had no choice but to do what he was saying do. Remember, we have steaks on the grill, potatoes in the oven, asparagus on the counter, food we just bought in the refrigerator. But in 15 minutes, we're packed and on the road. It wasn't until then that Colin told us what happened. So you see, when he went to the island the very first time, he used the bathroom on a tree. And a few minutes later, a puppy, as he describes it, came out of the woods, smelled it, and peed on the same tree. When he went to pet this puppy, it yelped and ran off. So he figured it was scared. So he hopped in the water and swam back over, thinking nothing of it. When he went back that evening, the whole area smelled like piss. So he walked around a bit and he sees the puppy again. This time, it's being playful. He described it as a cute puppy, jet black, kind of looked like a Doberman, but no brown hair at all. And as he was there, down on his knees playing with it, he hears a growl. The pup runs off, and he could tell something was moving towards him in those woods, but he couldn't see it. So Colin ran full speed, and when he got out of the tree line, he didn't want to wade out into the water, so he ran to that bluff and dove in. He told us he stayed underwater as long as he could. Wasn't sure what direction he was going in, but he knew he needed to get away. Without a doubt, he needed to get away from where he was. And according to him, the entire time that he was swimming, he was so afraid he couldn't even hear us until he was on shore. Now understand, we are literally driving through the night to get home. Our checkout was that next day at 12 noon. By 3 p.m. Monday, we get a call from the guy who we rented the place from. He says his cleaning crew just left the house and that we broke the back door. The knob was broken. And that we had agreed to not have pets in the house, but it smelled like wet dog. He's fussing on the phone, telling us he's going to keep our deposit, charge us extra money for the doorknob, and even more money because he had to remove the odor of wet dog. Listen, my husband is on the phone with him, and he's very polite considering the circumstances. He says, "Sir, we left the property Sunday night after a monster chased our son, who was swimming on the lake. If you don't believe us, ask your neighbor. We left at his directions. So you can charge us those extra fees. We're fine with that. We have the money. But what the hell you need to do is warn people who rent that property from you about what's over there, because somebody's going to get hurt." Understand, this conversation is happening right there in front of me on speakerphone. And that's when he says, "Did you not read the letter that was left on the kitchen counter? It says, do not go to the island across from the dock." It's in red writing. It says, "Do not go to the island across from the dock. It's privately owned." Now, I'm charging you, and the next time you should read the damn instructions. Now, here's the craziest thing. I do remember there being a letter on the counter, and I do remember there being red writing. Neither one of us read it, though. Looking back on it, I sure wish we would have. What's up, ladies and gentlemen? It's your boy, Dog Waters. I'm back with the entire story this time. But before I play this story, we need to address a few things and do a little housekeeping, because there's a lot of new people that's coming, and that's cool. You're new here, you're welcome. But again, and I'm going to keep on reminding you, the new people. I got to bring you up to speed. Number one, this is not the place for you. If you have thin skin, this is not the place for you. Number two, when it comes to beef and people popping off at the mouth, I handles my business on my own. Don't run around saying stuff on my behalf. Just chill and relax, because I got it under control. And number three, the most offensive thing you can do is come over here and complain to me about the number of ads that YouTube interjects into the video, because I don't put the ads in the video myself. And I want you to understand, when I read a comment like that, what it means. So when I look at the computer and the computer says that you said that, "Oh, Dog Waters, it was 15 ads in this 1 hour segment," it goes to my brain's computer and it translates and it goes, "Hey man, I don't want to watch these ads. I don't want to hit the skip button. I just want to listen to what I want to listen to." And then my computer goes And then the words come back out of my mouth and say, man, this is a volunteer army. You ain't got to listen to nothing that I put out. Get the phone from around here. So, to avoid me going back and forth with you, if you who does not appreciate the content that's coming out, that's going to complain about the number of ads that YouTube puts in it, just get the phone. Gone somewhere else and find another place to call you home. Gone! Get the hell on, is what I'm saying to you. Other than that, enjoy your swim in the dark waters, man.
Simple Jack, yeah, you went all out on that one, huh? You did. Really swung for the fences, huh?
Thank you. Yeah. Thanks, yeah. Yeah, it was an intense experience. You know, I just did the work. Watched a lot of retarded people. Spent time with them, observed them. Watched all the retarded stuff they did. But, you know, there were times when I was doing Jack that I actually felt retarded, like really retarded.
Dang.
In a weird way, I had to sort of just free myself up to believe that it was okay to be stupid or dumb.
To be a moron.
Yeah.
To be moronical.
Exactly. To be a moron.
An imbecile.
Yeah.
Like the dumbest that ever lived. Stupid Jack.
By the end of the whole thing, I was like, wait a minute, you know? I flushed so much out, how am I gonna jumpstart it up again? It's just like...
Yeah.
Yeah, right?
You was farting in bathtubs and laughing your off.
Yeah. I mean, it was just really it was crazy.
It's like working with mercury. You're serious? You don't know. Everybody knows you never go full retard.
What do you mean?
You went full retard, man. Never go full retard.
Okay, so last year, I got tired of Portland, right? Too much crime going on. It's crazy out in the streets. So I decided I'm going to move to Arlington, Texas. Well, not exactly Arlington, but it's the closest major city. I'm about 90 miles west of Arlington. I buy myself a nice plot of land, 115 acres. Now, my family begged me not to leave. They gave me every reason not to go. Texas, the people are crazy. They're racist. It's a Republican state. Blah, 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 blah. But after being here for over a year, I can confidently tell you, up until the point that this happened, my relationship with my neighbors was great. I loved being in my house. Everything was fine with the exception of these events. About a month after I move in, I start seeing things. Now, let me explain something to you. I have grown up in the city my entire life. I have never, ever, ever been in the woods. I have never been around deers or rabbits or any actual wildlife. So I'm seeing things, but I'm not sure exactly what I'm seeing. Now, to be more specific, I see these dogs. I mean huge black dogs running across the backside of my property that kind of look like Dogman Encounters, but they're way too freaking big. Now, naturally, when you're confused about something like this and you're new to the area, you head on over to your neighbors and you start asking them questions. So I head on over, knock on the door. Hey, neighbor, I've been seeing these big old dogs running around in the woods. Have you ever seen anything like this? He says, yeah, they come through every now and then. Just leave them alone. It's nothing but big dogs. Everything will be fine. So I'm saying to myself, everything is fine, right? Wrong. A couple of days later, I'm outside. The sun is going down, and one of these things darts out, running super fast about 75 yards away from me. I get a close look at it, and yes, it looks like a dog. The only exception is it has this super long snout, and its head is huge. So now I find myself online trying to figure out what the hell this is, and I go to Facebook groups, and then I go to Reddit groups, and I learn about cryptids. And finally, I stumble across what people are calling the Dogman. Now I'm up in the middle of the night posting on Reddit and on Facebook, asking questions. Simple stuff like, what are they? What do they do? Can you kill them? What happens if you shoot them? Now, initially, the people in the groups across the board kind of shunned me on Reddit. They gave me all these downvotes. On some of those Facebook groups, the people are just absolutely toxic, right? But finally, one day, this guy starts answering my questions. The conversation moves from Reddit to email. We go back and forth on email for about a month and a half, and the next thing you know, we're talking on the phone. And he starts to give me more and more information about Dogman. Now, please understand, I know he's a stranger, but we talked on the phone quite a bit. And I kind of got to trusting the guy. The next thing I know, people in the group are starting to respond to me a whole hell of a lot. And now I'm starting to get emails from random people. It escalates. And now I'm getting phone calls from people asking me about Dogman. One evening, I'm riding home from work, and this guy calls me and offers to pay me $2,000 to come on my property and hunt Dogman. Listen to me. Now, I saw these things with my own two eyes. And yes, I'm not a woodsman. I'm new to owning property like this. But I got common sense, and I realized that as fast as that thing was moving and as big as it was, hunting it is a terrible idea. So I tell him, sir, I appreciate your offer, but I'm not interested in hunting these creatures. They've done absolutely nothing to me. It seems as if they're literally just crossing over my property and going about their business. I would prefer to keep it that way. This guy gets angry and hangs up the phone. An hour later, the original guy that I had been talking to calls me, and he's trying to convince me to let this gentleman come to my property. And I'm telling him, no, I don't want anybody here. Let's just leave it alone. It's all good. I don't want anybody on my property. He presses me over and over and over again, looping me, asking me the same question. Now, I'm explaining myself to him, trying to get the hell off the phone. And I said, listen, bro, I got to go out of town tomorrow. I'm packing my bag. Nobody's coming to my property to hunt anything. And if you keep on pressing me about this, you and I are going to stop talking. The next day, I board a plane, headed to Portland to visit my mom for a week. I'm there for 2 days when my phone rings about 7 o'clock in the evening. And it's my neighbor. And he's pissed. He says, hey, I hear a whole hell of a lot of shooting down there over on your property. Are you okay? I go on to explain to my neighbor that I'm not at home and nobody should be on my property with a firearm, and I tell him to call the sheriff. He and I hang up the phone, and I expect that this situation is going to resolve itself. But that's where I was freaking wrong. Because upon my arrival back home, I'm driving down the road, headed to my house, passing my neighbor's house, and I see him barreling down his driveway in his F-250 like a bat out of hell. He comes up behind me, blowing the horn, pulls up next to me, cuts me off, hops out of his car with an old rusty revolver, screaming, eyes bug wide open, and says, what the is wrong with you? Now, pause for a second. I need you to understand at this point in time, I'm completely ignorant. I do not know what is going on. Picture the scene. I am boxed in on the road. He is out of the car, beating on my window with that rusty old revolver, and it's like, get your out of the car. I roll down the window and I'm like, yo, what's going on? What's the problem? He says, who is that you have on your property? They have been over there shooting in the woods for the past 3 days. My sons were in the woods hunting, and these son of a were shooting. Enough for one of them to shoot and kill one of my children. Listen to me. He now has me at gunpoint, tells me to get out of the vehicle, sit down on the ground on my hands, pulls out his cell phone, and calls the sheriff. A few moments later, the sheriff pulls up. Now, I go on to express to the sheriff that I'm just arriving back in town, and my neighbor has pulled out of his driveway, pulled a weapon on me, and has threatened my life. For what reason, I do not know. But the sheriff looks at me and says, so you mean to tell me you didn't know that someone was on your property over the past couple of days shooting in the woods? You didn't give anyone permission to be on your property. I tell him, listen, I have been out of town. I did not give anyone permission to go on my property and hunt. At this point in time, my neighbor barges into the conversation saying, that's some, both of us went over to that house, knocked on that door, and those people in that house told us that he leased the house to them for a week so that they can hunt his land. Now, listen to me. At this point in time, I'm standing there, and I know I'm looking at these two like they got four heads because I did not tell anybody that they could go on my property, nor did I let anybody stay at my damn house. And I verbalized this to them. I don't know what the y'all talking about, but I did not give anybody permission to go in my house. I damn sure didn't give anybody permission to hunt on my land. So you are telling me that some people broke into my house. So I get off a plane, you cut me off in the middle of the road, pull a gun on me, and now you reveal to me that someone has broken into my house and went on my land and decided they're going to hunt. That is what's going on. The sheriff barges back in and says, well, I walked around your house and I saw no signs of forced entry. Listen to me. At this point in time, I'm losing. I'm saying, let's all go to the house because guess what? I didn't tell anybody they had permission to be at my house. And I guarantee you, somebody broke into my house. So we all proceed up the road to the house. Now listen, when I hit the driveway, I know some boy done went down because the pot that I kept on the left side of my front door where I kept the spare key has been shifted and moved. We all get out, walk up to the front door, walk around the house, inspect all the windows, the back door, the side door, and nothing is out of place. But listen to me when I tell you, I have a severe case of OCD and I keep things in order. I know that that flower pot was moved, and that's when it hit me. That son of a that I had been talking on the phone with, it all came flooding into my mind. I remember one evening being on the phone with him as I'm leaving the house. Now, I get distracted talking to this son of a. Somehow I lock my keys in the car. And I remember saying to him, thank God for spare keys, because if not, I wouldn't be able to get back into my damn house. Now, listen to this. When we finally go inside of the house, remember, I told you I got OCD. I could clearly tell from the minute I opened the door that not only was one person there, but about 4, 5 people had been in my damn house. How do I know? The chairs at the living room table had been shifted. In the kitchen, there was a freaking orange juice carton on the counter. I don't do like that. My sofa and love seat had been set on. My remotes had been moved. There were towels on the floor in the bathroom. I'm walking around in the house with him and the sheriff having a conniption fit because somebody has been in my house. And the worst part of it all is neither one of them believe me. They are utterly convinced that I let someone lease my house for the week. The sheriff proceeds to tell me that he knocked on the door and the man opened. He describes the man and he says that he pulled out a piece of paper that showed a short-term rental lease for the week and the rights to hunt on the property. Now listen to me when I tell you, I'm not like a thug or a gangster. I'm not hard. I'm not even violent. But when I tell you in that moment, I wanted to lob a bomb and blow up somebody. I wanted to kill them. Because again, the sheriff and my neighbor are in the house insisting that I did this. So I try to calm down and explain to the sheriff what I believe happened. As I'm talking to him, he cuts me off and says, hold on. So you're trying to tell me that you met a guy on the internet. Then you emailed him. Then you gave him your phone number. Then you talked to him on the phone, a stranger. And then you told this stranger that you had a spare key. And then you told the same stranger that you were going out of town. Now, of course, if you listen to the story, you done figured out I did some dumb retarded. But you got to be in a moment with me as all of this is going down. Because I'm coming to the realization as the sheriff is insulting me and my neighbor is shaking his head that these done been up in my house. The sheriff says, look, it's either one or two things going on. Either you are a lying son of a, or you got to be a 100% Forrest Gump retard. Either way it goes, neither one of those are good options. So here's what we're going to do. We about to get up out of your house and let you figure out what the hell is going on. But I want you to know something. If I hear one more gunshot over here, your ass is going to jail. And you're going to go to jail for a long time. You understand? Then they turn around, walk out of the house, and leave me standing there alone. Now, I'm sure you're listening to this story and saying to yourself, well, I don't get it. What's the point of the story? I thought it was supposed to be about Dogman. The story is about Dogman. And it's about the crazy that I found trying to find answers to Dogman, and how them crazy sons have broken into my house. And now I got Dogmen, walking wolves, walking up to my back door, looking through my doors and my windows. So yeah, this story's about Dogman. Now listen to this. 2 days later, I head over to my neighbor's house. He's not at home, but his teenage sons and his wife are. And I'm apologizing for the whole situation, right? And on top of that, I'm trying to get more information about who was on the property. His wife looks at me with pity in her eyes and says, listen, I know what you're trying to do, but I'm not going to allow you to interrogate my sons without my husband being around. So the best piece of advice I have for you is to wait for him to get home, and I'll send him up the road to see you. 4 hours later, I'm sitting out on the porch smoking a pipe, and up rose my neighbor. And the first words out of my mouth, peace, Lonnie, I don't have no issues with you. I just need to talk about what's going on. I swear to God, I did not let anybody stay at my house and hunt my lands, and I would never want anyone to hurt or harm your sons. Lonnie looks at me over the hood of his truck and says, you know what? That's what my wife just told me. She says, you ain't the type of guy to have random people just running around in your house. My wife likes to call you a metrosexual, saying you way too neat for a man, but you're not gay either. So in her mind, there's no way you just let strangers into your house. Now listen, I didn't know how to take that, but at the same time, I'm not trying to have a conflict with him either. So I just let it go. And that's when Lonnie lays the real deal on me. He says, listen, people who broke in your house, that ain't the problem you got. The real problem you got on your hands is this. I was in them woods walking around, and I found blood, lots of blood. So either one of those guys shot themselves, or worse, they done hit one of these animals. And that ain't good for you at all, because that means they left their scent in the woods and they can track it back to your house. The look on this man's face was serious, and I mean serious, like a doctor telling you that you got cancer. He goes on to say, listen, if I was you, I would do everything in my power to get their scent out of my house. I mean clean, scrub, wash, throw stuff away if you have to, but you need to get the scent of those men out of your house. Because if not, you're going to have a huge problem on your hands real soon. Then he hops back in his truck saying, look, I'm right up the road if you need me. I got guns, I got ammunition, I got everything you could want. I want you to call me if you have any trouble. But to be clear with you, shooting these things has got to be your last option. Your first option is cleaning out the scent so they understand that it was somebody else and it wasn't you. Now look, as he drove away, I couldn't shake the look that was on his face. It kind of haunted me. He was looking at me like he was taking one final look upon my face. Like somewhere deep down inside, in the back of his mind, he knew that he might not ever see me again. Sure enough, 2 days later, I saw him and his family packing up the truck. When I asked where they're headed, he says, we're going down to Florida for a few weeks to visit family. Now get this, his 2 sons are sitting in the back seat, shaking their heads at me. His wife has this look of pity on her face. So now I'm starting to get scared because they clearly know something, but they're not telling me anything. So I said, Lonnie, look, man, please tell me what's going on. Why are you guys leaving? I got this bad feeling. Tell me what's up, Lonnie. He looks and says, everything ought to be fine, man. We just headed out for vacation. And pretty much right there is when I realized, okay, not only are these creatures definitely going to come back, but I'm going to have to deal with this on my own. So I head on down to the gun store, looking to purchase a shotgun. When I get inside, I ask the clerk, I say, hey, if you wanted to protect yourself from a home invader, what would you use? Naturally, he tells me to get a shotgun, and he gives me some regular shotgun ammunition. I tell him, what if I wanted to guarantee in one shot that I was able to put this person down? He reaches in a drawer and hands me some 12-gauge slugs. Now tell him, what if I was outside and I got some wild animals on my property, and I don't want to kill them, but I want to run them off? The sales clerk starts fumbling around in the drawer and says, well, if I'm dealing with some wild animals and I don't want to kill them, I would probably use some dragon's breath, but we don't really have any dragon's breath rounds. I think I got one of them in here left, and one ain't going to do you no good. But I insisted, he relented, and so I walk out of there with the shotgun, the regular shells, the slugs, and one dragon's breath round. Now all is quiet for a solid week. Not a sound outside at night other than crickets. Sunday night rolls around, I'm in the shower, and I hear this roar. Straight sounded like Godzilla was outside of my house, and Godzilla was pissed off. But I had planned for this eventuality. Now, it might not have been the best plan in the world, but at least I had a plan. You see, upstairs in my house, there was a sunroom. It provided a 360-degree view around the property. In fact, I bought this house because I was going to convert that sunroom into a smoking lounge where I smoke my pipes. So now I'm springing into action. Hopping out of the shower, putting my drawers on, grabbing my shotgun, clicking off all the lights inside, turning on all the floodlights outside, heading up the steps to the sunroom where I'm positioned, looking around with my shotgun. 20 minutes later, and I don't see anything. 30 minutes later, I still don't see anything. Now thoughts are kind of bouncing around inside my head. Okay, am I freaking hearing things? Maybe I'm tripping and I'm afraid. So the adrenaline is leaving my body. I'm starting to calm down. So I said, look, I'm just going to chill up here for a minute, take a look and see what's going on. I light one of my pipes and take a puff. Smoke begins to fill that small room to the point to where I can barely breathe. So I head on over and open one of the windows. And that's when I first hear it. There is something gently, very gently walking around the outside of my house. And because of my vantage up high up in the air, I cannot see it. All I can see is the edges of the roof. Now, of course, you're saying to yourself, well, how the hell does he know it's something gently walking around his house? Let me explain it to you. Because I hear it sniffing. I know what it sounds like when a dog sniffs, and this sounds like the largest freaking dog on the planet is outside of my house sniffing around. Now listen to me. I don't know if it was because I opened that window and the pipe smoke began to leave out, but what I do know is within 7 seconds of me opening that window, I watched a dogman, yes, a dogman, walk on two legs out into the front lawn of my house, turn and look directly up at me. Now, let me paint the picture for you again because some people may not understand. It walked on two legs out into the light to make sure that I can see it. And listen, I will accurately describe this to you. It was not mangy at all. It had short hairs. It had very, very long ears. One eye reflected an amberish yellow color from the lights. The other eye reflected this amber and red color from the lights. Understand, this creature locks eyes with me through the floodlights and shows me its teeth. Now listen to me. I've heard a lot of stuff about Dogman and how they have these mystical, magical properties. I don't know nothing about none of that. What I can tell you is what I saw and what I know. The impression that it gave me was that this creature was saying to me, just because you're way up there does not mean that you're safe. And I'm going to prove to you that being up high means absolutely nothing to me. Listen to me. It does a two-step. Right foot, left foot. Takes off running. Leaps into the air. I am standing there watching this animal fly up to my roof. My pipe is now falling out of my mouth. And I'm saying out loud, good Lord Jesus, help me. It lands on a roof and begins to climb its way up to me until its face is pressed against the window, which is cracked open. Now listen to me. Look, I want to be clear with you. I have the shotgun in my hand. Its face is pressed against the window. It looks me directly in the eyes, then looks down at the shotgun, making me understand that it knew exactly what it was. And I realized right then and there that if I even decided to point this weapon at this creature, It was going to me up. So guess what I did? I stood there, eyes locked on its eyes, as it sniffed and sniffed and sniffed again, looking directly at me. Now listen, there is no way to do justice to the size of this creature, and I will try my best to explain it to you like this. Up close, right there in your face, those eyes are freaking huge. I'm talking about take your iPhone, saw it in half, hold the right side up, the left side up, put a yellow eyeball in that space with a black pupil, and that's how freaking big the eyes were. In fact, its eyes were so big and massive, it made it hard for me to look at anything else. Now, I will admit to you, I can't tell you how long I stood there looking into this creature's eyes, watching his eyes dart around the room, and watching his nose sniff the air. Now, what I do know is this. Once it gathered whatever information it was looking for, it quickly turned its head to the right, then whipped it back to the left, head-butting my window, putting a crack in it, growled at me, and then jumped off the roof. I'm standing there saying to myself, you're okay, you're okay, you're okay, you're okay, you're okay. Honestly, I wasn't. 5 minutes later, I realized I had pissed myself. And I'm not talking about like, you use the bathroom and you hurry up and put your penis back into your pants and you got a little drippage, guys. You know what I'm talking about. I'm talking about straight up peed all over the floor. And then the worst thing about it all was I was too afraid to even go downstairs and get anything to clean the piss up with. So I slept up there on this little bitty chair with the piss stains all over the floor. Get this, the next day I called the sheriff. The same sheriff deputy comes out. I explained to him what I saw. He sees the missing shingles on my roof. And he says, earlier when we talked in your house, I tried to explain to you that you're going to need to learn how to respect your neighbors. You have to think and consider them with some of the decisions that you make. And I said, yes, sir. I have been very considerate of my neighbor. In fact, I spoke to Lonnie the other day, and I think he and I are on good terms. And he goes on to say to me, well, Lonnie is not the only neighbor you have around here. These creatures are your neighbors as well. And from what you're telling me, you pissed off one of your neighbors. He came over just to check and see what was going on. And when he realized that it wasn't you, he sent you a little message letting you know not to with him. He goes on to hammer the point home. Consider this whole situation nothing but a warning. And that's what it was, because if it wanted to take you, nobody could have stopped it from taking you. It came over to sniff around, find out what was going on, and it was just telling you, don't with me, I won't with you. But if you with me, I'll be back. Now listen to me, that's pretty much the end of my story and what happened. But guess what I learned? That nobody tells you in any of these interviews or any of these little stupid stories out here. Once Dogman starts warning you, he never stops. Because there's mornings where I wake up and there's piss everywhere. There's other times while I'm in the kitchen cooking and I see the ears and snout in the window. For me, this ain't being warned. This is being terrorized. Yes, it could come in the house and get me if it wanted to. And I could deal with it breaking in the house. But just being in limbo, having to worry about if it's going to pop up while I'm taking it, or if it's going to pop up while I got a girl over, or if it's going to pop up while I'm outside in the backyard grilling, that's not cool, man. That's being terrorized.